the COVID. Hello children, I welcome you all for this biology class. Hope all are safe at home by following the regular rules against the COVID-19. Anyhow, don't be careless in following the safety rules. Often wash your hands and wear the mask by covering the nose and mouth. Today in this video class, we are going to learn a new chapter. That is chapter 12, reproduction in plants. What is reproduction? What is reproduction? Producing new young individuals from the parents of the same species is called reproduction. Production of new individuals. New individuals of same species. Of same species, not of different kind. That is, dog will give birth to puppies. Hen will give birth to chicken. Will hen give birth to a duck? No, is it not? So, the production of the young individuals or the new individuals from parents of same species. The cow will give birth to a calf, not an elephant. Like that, of the same species. So, the production of new individuals from parents of same species is called reproduction. And various processes are going on in our body. That is, respiration, digestion, then excretion, circulation, transportation of substances. So many processes are going on in our body, and that and all very essential for us to lead the life. But this process, producing the young ones, is not such an important for the life, continuation of life. But it ensures the continuation of species. That means it is very important for the continuation of life by giving birth to the individuals of its same species. If young ones are not produced, then the race of the life will come to an end. Is it not? If the new young ones are not produced, what will happen? The new life, after the death of the parent, if new individuals are not produced, the life will come to an end. So, for ensuring the continuation of the species, generation after generation, this reproduction is a must. It is very essential. So, the reproduction not only takes place in animals but also in plants. So today we are going to discuss about the reproduction in plants. This reproduction is also of two types. This reproduction is also of two types, that is asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. Asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. What is that asexual mode of reproduction? That is, the production of the young ones or the new plants without the seed formation. Generally, how you will develop or grow a new plant? By putting the seed, by sowing a seed, the new plants will grow. Is it not? In some plants, no need of seed. by cutting the branches or stems, and if you plant means it will start to grow. So the mode of reproduction or the process of growing plant without seeds. Asexual means what? Without seed formation. Without seeds, if the new plants are grown, then it is called, that mode of reproduction is called asexual mode of reproduction. In some plants, the male and female part will be producing the gametes, and the gametes fuse together and they form the seed. And from the seed, a new individual will be produced. A new plant will be start to grow. So such growth of plants or the process of reproduction with the seeds. With the seeds means that method of reproduction is called sexual reproduction. So the process of producing young ones from parents of the same species is called reproduction. That reproduction is of two types, asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. What is this asexual mode of reproduction? The process of producing the new plants without seeds is called asexual mode of reproduction. And sexual mode of reproduction means with seeds. The new plants will be produced with the help of seeds is called sexual mode of reproduction. And this asexual method of reproduction is again divided into several types. They are budding, fission, fragmentation, budding, fission, fragmentation, then vegetative propagation. So, this asexual method of reproduction in plants consists of several types. They are budding, fission, fragmentation, and vegetative reproduction. Another one, spore formation, is also there. Spore formation. So 5 types are there in asexual method of reproduction. What are they? Budding, fission, fragmentation, vegetative propagation, and spore formation. So these are the types of reproduction in asexual method of reproduction. In this class, we are going to discuss about this asexual method of reproduction, and let us discuss one by one. First one, let us see about the fission. The first method, let us study about fission, and this takes place in case of amoeba and bacteria. In case of unicellular organisms like amoeba and bacteria, this method of reproduction, that is the fission mode of reproduction, will take place. As they are single-celled organisms, it will be microscopic in nature. For example, let us take the bacteria as example. This will be the single cell of bacteria, and it will have a nucleus in the center. This one is the nucleus. And this is a cytoplasm. And this is cell membrane. This is cell membrane. This one is nucleus. And this is cytoplasm. And after reaching a certain size, what this bacteria or amoeba will do means, the nuclear material first it will start to divide. That is, the bacterial cell first, the nuclear material will get constricted. That means it will start to divide and the division will take place in the middle of the cell nucleus. So this nucleus, this is called constriction. The nuclear material, it will start to constrict in the middle and it will divide into two. Following the division of the nucleus, the cytoplasm of the cell will also start to constrict. So, the nuclear material will be divided separately and next the cytoplasm will also start to divide. And further, the elongation of the cell membrane continues and it will break up into two cells. And this will lead to the formation of two cells. So, one bacterial cell or the amoeba, they will start to divide. First, the nuclear material will divide. Then, next, after the constriction gets over, the cytoplasm of the cell will start to divide. Further, the elongation or the stretching of the cell membrane take place, and the nuclear material and the cytoplasm along with the cell membrane, it will detach themselves as two cells and two new individuals will be formed. Two new daughter cells will be formed. So this method of reproduction where the nuclear material, the cytoplasm and the nuclear membrane divides, the parent cell divides into two daughter cells is called fission method. This is one of the asexual mode of reproduction. So do you understand? This takes place in case of amoeba and bacteria. Next type, budding. Next we shall see about the budding. Next mode of reproduction is budding. So this budding takes place in case of yeast cells. Already in the previous chapters we studied about the yeast. So again, in yeast cells, what will happen? You all know that yeast is also a single cell. Is it not? It also have the nucleus. Now, in this yeast, a small bulb-like projection will appear on the parent cell, the membrane of the parent cell. So, a small bulb-like projection will appear in the parent cell. That means in the individual, young individual. Then this bud, this is called as bud. This is called yeast cell, single yeast cell. This is nucleus, and inside this the nuclear cytoplasm and all present. Now, in this yeast cell, a small bulb-like appearance that grows on the cell membrane of the single cell yeast is called bud. And this bud, they will enlarge in size and grows. At that time, this nuclear material in the parent cell, it will start to constrict. So, the nuclear material, it will start to constrict like this, elongate, and they will constrict, and a part of this nucleus will move into the bud, that is the newly producing cell. Along with it, the constrictions will also goes on. The cytoplasm will constrict, cell membrane will also constrict. And finally, a new individual, after the cell reaches its maturity, what will happen means the cells will divide into two. After reaching a certain stage, a certain size, the cells will divide. The nuclear material divide, cytoplasm divide, and the cell membrane also gets divided, and a new cell will be formed. So, this is the parent cell and this is the daughter cell. This is the parent cell. So, this method of reproduction, that is formation of bud, a bulb-like projection appears on the parent cell. Following that, what happens? The nuclear material gets constricted, and the bud also grows, increase in their size. So, after reaching a certain size of the cell, the nuclear material divides into two, and one of the nuclear material enters into the bud, and the cytoplasm also gets divided, cell membrane also gets divided, and a new daughter cell and a parent cell is formed. So, this method of reproduction by formation of the bud is called budding. Sometimes this budding takes place rapidly in a very fast manner, and many cells will be formed in case of yeast. So, if this is the yeast cell, many cells will be formed like this, and they live in colonies. Group of cells, they live together by forming colonies. Inside this, the nuclear material will be present, and they form the colony like this. Not individually like this. Rapid reproduction, cell growth will take place, budding take place, and many cells will be formed, and they live in groups called colonies. So, this method of reproduction in case of yeast is called as budding. Do you understand? First we saw fission, that is in amoeba and bacteria. Next method in yeast, the mode of reproduction is by budding. Next one, spore formation. Next one, spore formation. In case of rhizobus, that is in fungus called rhizobus. One of the example only simple example I am giving. In many organisms, in all fungus it will take place, and one of the example what we are going to see is rhizobus. Already in nutrition chapter you would have studied about saprophytic and autotrophic nutrition, and in the saprophytic nutrition what example we saw was that growth of the fungus in moist stale bread. If you sprinkle some water on the bread and if you keep it closed with in an airtight container without aeration, after 2 or 3 days if you open means you can form the black color layer or green color or white layer, fluffy white layer will be formed on that stale moist bread. That is the fungus called rhizobus. And how these rhizobus or the fungus grow rapidly and increase in number. That method is called spore formation. So the fungus reproduce by a method called spore formation. That is, if this is the bread slice And if you keep it for a week together means you can see the small, what is that, black, either black or green or some white layer also. Even in tomatoes and all you can see. If the, in the ripened tomato, if you keep it for many days means it will get decay and fungal growth can be seen in tomatoes. That is also the fungus. And thick fluffy growth of fungus can be seen on the bread, is it not? And that is called as the fungal growth. And the structure of this fungus, this is the structure of the fungus. This is nothing but inside this only the spores will be present. So this is called hyphae. This is sporangium. Sporangium. This is spores. And this stalk-like thing is called sporangiophore. Now, let us see about the structure of these spores. How these, fungal growth. Individually, if you take that and if you see under the microscope, you can see these type of structures. They have this horizontally growing stolon that is called hyphae. In plants, generally what we call it as root, a substratum. It needs a substratum to hold. So with the help of this hyphae, they hold that substratum and the sporangiophores arise from that hyphae, and at the top it will have a spherical structure called sporangium. Inside the sporangium only the spores will be present. So this is the structure of the fungus. As they are saprophytic, they are not able to produce their own food, they depend on their host. So the bread having the nutrients, they will absorb the nutrients from the bread and they have their growth. So inside this sporangium only, the spores are present. And each spore is an, sexual organ. It is the organ that are able to produce the new plant. That means each spores, they have a hard outer covering. Each spores, they have hard outer covering inside which the nutrients or the food is stored in this for this spores. And this outer covering will be very hard and tough, and when they are remain unstable in case of unfavorable conditions. That means if the water and food is not available for them, temperature and all not moderate or available for them, it will not reproduce, it will remain in the same condition. When the sporangium gets matured, they will burst out and the spores will be released. And when the spores, they get released and fall on the substratum, and whenever the conditions are favorable, whenever they get water, air and food to grow, they will start to reproduce. This hard outer covering will split open and they will start to grow. So the mode of reproduction by producing the spores are called as reproduction is called as spore formation. So this is one type of reproduction by producing spores. That is, the spore is the single reproductive cell of the body which is covered by a thick and protective layer. The spore is the single reproductive organ of the plant. It is a single cell. Like this, numerous spores are there inside the sporangium. So when the sporangium grows and gets matured, it splits open or bursts open and the spores will be dispersed. Or it may float in the air and may fall off to a distant place. Whenever they get the favorable conditions like water, temperature and moist, they start to grow. So this method of reproduction is seen in case of the fungus and all. Example, rhizopus, in a bread mold, tomatoes, wherever the decayed food materials are seen, this will develop, start to grow. This is one of the example for spore formation, example for asexual reproduction. Understand? Next, fragmentation. Next type of reproduction what we are going to see is fragmentation. Example for this is Spirogyra. Spirogyra is nothing but an alga. So, here in spore formation we saw about the fungus. It is a non-green plant. But in case of Spirogyra, it is an example for alga. Alga are green plants which can produce their own food. Now, let us see how they are able to produce their new plant, young one. Now, you all know that Spirogyra structure is a ribbon-like, filamentous ribbon-like structure. It will have a long filament-like structures. Inside this, the nuclear material will be present like this. So it is, and in between, they will have the fragments. Each cell will be having fragments like this. And after the cell is elongated and grows, it will divide into small fragments like this and they will separate. They will separate like this small fragments. A long filamentous green color ribbon-like structure is seen in Spirogyra, and when that Spirogyra matures, it will divide into many pieces called fragments. So the process of separation of these layers into many layers is called fragmentation, and they will again regenerate. Regenerate means what? Able to produce the growth, further growth. Even in lizard, you could have seen if the tail gets cut, what will happen? The lizard will not die. It will regenerate its tail. So this capacity of producing the last part is called regeneration. So in the same way, in the Spirogyra also, the fragmented piece, that broken up piece, that will be able to grow into a separate tissue or a plant. That is called fragmentation. This method of breaking down into pieces called fragments and producing the young one is called fragmentation. Such type of reproduction is seen in the alga called Spirogyra. So this type of fragmentation is possible only in plants which have the good regeneration capacity. They should have good regenerating capacity, then only they will be able to regenerate into a new plant. Understand, this is alga where you can see in that water bodies and all. You can see the green layer floating on the surface of the water. That is the moss, the fern. like that. Example, another one in spore formation, ferns. Ferns in a fern plant, under the surface of the leaf, you can see small spore-like structures like this. Under the surface of the leaf, you can see that round structure called spore formation in ferns. So this fragmentation spiro, alga is spirogyra is an alga, that is nothing but the green layer formed on the surface of the water in ponds and lakes and all. It will be floating. So that is called the spirogyra or mosses. Tamil paasa mudichiruchunu solvingilla, that is the alga. They and all reproduce by means of fragmentation. They will divide into layers and they are able to regenerate. Understand? So like this, now we saw in asexual method 4 types we saw. That is fission in case of amoeba and bacteria. That is the nuclear material divides and then following the cytoplasm. Then that cell membrane will also divide. So a single cell will split into 2 and 4 and like that the multiplies in number and the reproduction takes place. That mode of reproduction is called fission. Next one, budding in case of yeast. A bulb-like projection appears on the surface of the cell membrane and after it matures, that is the bud, that is called bud. That bud will separate and forms a new individual, that is called budding. Then spore formation in case of fungal growth and all. Spore, like that in sporangium, the spores will be present. After reaching the maturity, the sporangium bursts open and the spores will be released, and the spores, under favorable conditions, it will give rise to new plants. Next one, in fragmentation type, spirogyra, mosses, the various algal plants, we can see this type of reproduction. That is, the parent cell will divide into many fragments and they are able to regenerate, forming the new species called fragmentation. Next one, let us see about the vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is the next one what we are going to see. The next type. Next what we are going to see is vegetative propagation. Okay, now do you know what are the vegetative parts of the plant? What are called vegetative parts of plant? That means in plants 2 parts are there. One is vegetative part and the other is reproductive part. That means the parts which are not involved in the production of new plants are called vegetative parts. Example, root, stem, leaf, branches, like this. All these will not involve in the production of the new plant. Then which will take part in the production of new plant? If you are planting a new plant, a sapling you will plant, then what will happen? Or if you are sowing a seed, from that a new plant will arise. And it will start to grow by giving out the new leaflets. Then the stem will appear. From that the branches will appear, like that it will grow. After reaching a certain stage, after the plant get mature, what they will produce? They will produce flowers. That flower will become fruit. Inside that fruit what will be there? Seed. Is it not? That seed only we are sowing and we start to grow a new plant. So the production of seed, for that which involves flower. Without flower, is there a chance to get a seed? Because the flower only changes into fruit, fruit only contains the seed. So the flower is the reproductive part of the plant. So what about the vegetative part of the plants? Root, stem, leaf and branches are the vegetative parts, which involves in the production of new parts of the plant, which we are going to discuss now. Let us see one by one what this vegetative part and how they are helps in the production of new parts of the plant. That is vegetative propagation. In that, first one, stem, then root, then leaves. How these parts are involved in producing the new plants. That is what we are going to see. For stem, example, potato, ginger, sugar cane, like this. Now, in this vegetative propagation itself, it is of two types, that is natural and artificial. In the vegetative propagation itself, two types are there, that is natural and artificial. Now, what we are discussing is that natural. That means from the stem. So, in plants, different parts store food in different organs. That is, some plants will store their food in the root, some will store in leaves, some will store in stem, some in flowers, like the different parts. Is it not? Here another one example is banana. So like this, different parts store their food. And some plants, they store their food in their stem. For example, potato, it is an example for underground stem. Ginger, underground stem. Turmeric, sugar cane. In this and all, what we are eating, the edible part is the stem part. As the root, potato and ginger are seen under the soil, you should not mistake it for root. It is the stem part. Now, if this is the potato, if this is a potato, in your home itself you will have the potato. In that, you can see some scars like this in potato. Some black dot also will be seen. So, it is also called as scar or eye. This is called scar or eye of potato. So, the food of the plant is stored in the stem part, that is underground stem. So, this underground stem has a scar or eye. From this only, if you keep this underground stem under the soil, if you plant this, from the eye of the potato, the new plants, the roots will arise like this, and the new plants will grow, and new plants will start to grow. So this method of reproduction from the stem part is called stem propagation. That means new plant arising from the stem part. In the same way, sugar cane. If this is the sugar cane, they will have nodes. If you cut and plant this sugar cane in the soil, from the nodes, new leaves will arise. So, banana, you all know the plantain tree. Just if the plantain tree stem is cut and if you plant, means from that the new tree will arise. These are all well-known examples what you are seeing in your daily life. Okay, so this method of producing new plants from the stem part is called stem propagation. Stem is a vegetative part of the plant. Understand? Next one is a natural part. Next one is root part. Ginger is also the example for the stem. It will grow in sidewards. If this is the ginger, it will not grow vertically, it will grow horizontally. It will spread and grow in the soil in the sidewards. New leaf will arise at the top above the soil like this. But it will grow in the sidewards. Ginger will grow in the sidewards under the soil. Next one, we shall see the example for root. So which plant and all will store their food in the root? For example, radish, beetroot, carrot, sweet potato, dahlia. You know that big flower, dahlia flower. That and all will store their food in their root. Okay, so from the root part, for example, let us take this sweet potato. They will grow in clusters like this. So above the soil, the new plants will start to grow. So this is a sweet potato. From this the small root hairs will appear. So this is the root of a sweet potato. So the new plants are produced from the vegetative part. Root is called root propagation. The new individual plant will be, if you separate this root and if you plant in the soil, means from this root a new plant will grow. So this is the example for root. What are the examples? Sweet potato, dahlia, then root, radish, beetroot, carrot, everything in the same way. From the root part only the new individual will be growing. Next one is the leaf. In case of bryophyllum, example for this is bryophyllum. You all know that this is the leaf of bryophyllum. So in the leaf of bryophyllum, they will have notches in the margin of the leaf. Like this, a notch will be present. So from the notches of the leaf, small plants will start to grow like this. So from the bryophyllum plant, if you detach a leaf and if you put it down in the soil, when it comes in contact with the soil, water and air, from the margin of the leaf, the margin of the bryophyllum leaf has small notches where the buds will start to grow. So this is the example for leaf propagation. Understand? So in the vegetative propagation, the vegetative parts help in the production of new plants, that is from the stem, root and leaves. So these parts help in the production of new plants naturally. Next one, let us see about the artificial method in vegetative propagation. What is that artificial method? That means they will not grow naturally and we are making them to grow by cutting and making some alternatives. For example, in this artificial method, cutting, layering, grafting, Then another one, tissue culture. Like this, different types are there in artificial vegetative propagation. What we saw with the stem, root and leaves are natural method of vegetative propagation. In artificial method of vegetative propagation, there are different types: cutting, layering, grafting and tissue culture. First, let us see about the cutting. Normal example, rose plant. What will you do if you want to grow a rose plant? If you cut a branch from a separate plant and if you plant that, from that a new plant, buds will arise and a new plant will start to grow. Is it not? So, cutting a part of a plant and the stem, cutting the stem of a plant and planting it will give rise to a new plant, means that method is called cutting. Example, rose. Then what is this layering? Layering means nothing but in Tamil, நீங்க என்ன சொல்வீங்க? பதியம் போடுறது, பதியம் போட்டு வளர்க்கறதுன்னு சொல்வாங்க. If you ask your mom, they will explain பதியம் போடுறதுனா என்னன்னு. It is nothing but, if this is a new plant, let this be the soil and this be the root, and here the plants will be growing. Is it not? It will have branches. Now, one of the branch near the ground, what you have to do is, you have to bend this branch and you have to keep it under the soil. And the part of the branch should be covered under the soil. So the portion that is bent and covered under the soil will develop root and a new plant will arise. Then after some time, after it grows to a certain stage, we may cut that and we may plant in place wherever we want. So this type of growing new plants from the parent plant is called layering. Example, jasmine. For this example, simple example, jasmine, you may see in your nearby your house itself. So in artificial method we saw cutting and layering. Next one, grafting. What is this grafting? Grafting means nothing but, if we want a desired quantity, a new quantity, if we want new variety, nowadays new varieties of fruits and flowers are daily we are seeing. Is it not? A hybrid like that they are saying. That is the variety what we want, what we desire. If we are able to produce, means that is called grafting. For that, what we will do means, we will, if this is the parent plant, stem of a parent plant, we will cut this. So we will have a portion of the parent plant, and what we need, that quantity from another plant, that part also we will take and we will put along with this old plant, and we will make a tie around that area. So this one part is called as stalk. That means a plant with root. So this stalk plant will have, is a rooted plant. It will be having connection with the soil, so that it could absorb the nutrients and water needed for the growth. And this cut portion, some other variety, that portion is kept above this stalk, and this is called as scion. S-C-I-O-N. Scion. So this is stalk. The stalk is the plant. It is a rooted plant, and the scion is the cut portion of some other plant. Both were kept joined together and they were grafted, joined. A bandage will be put for connecting, for support. So this stalk which has connection with the soil, they will absorb root minerals and water from the soil and they will supply to this scion for their growth, and a different new variety will be produced. This type of reproduction or producing new plants is called grafting. Next one, fourth one is tissue culture or cell culture. Tissue or cell culture is nothing but the tissue from a parent plant is taken and it will be grown in artificial mode of environment. Excuse. That is in lab conditions, because the cell is separated from the parent plant and it is grown separately in artificial environment, that is in the lab conditions, and they will be producing a new plant with the help of plant hormones and all, and they will produce a new variety. Such type of growth is called as tissue culture. Understand? So in artificial, there are 4 types: cutting, layering, grafting and tissue culture. So these are some of the methods what we saw in reproduction in plants. So reproduction means nothing but producing young ones from the parents of its own species is called reproduction. In reproduction, 2 methods are there. One is sexual and another one is asexual. Sexual means with seed formation. Asexual means without seed. So in asexual, we saw different types of reproduction, that is budding, fission, spore formation, fragmentation, and finally vegetative propagation. In vegetative propagation, we saw natural and artificial method. In natural means from the vegetative parts like roots, stem and leaves, how new plants are produced. Then in artificial method, 4 types we saw: cutting, layering, grafting and tissue culture. Hope you all understand. With this, the part 1, that is the one part I have explained. The next one, in the next class, we shall see about the sexual mode of reproduction in plants. Thank you, children.